that's where the misevaluation of Trey Lance came from. Is he Justin Fields? No, he's not that guy, right? And I don't think they wanted him to be Justin Fields, where he's scrambling all over the place. I think what they liked about Trey Lance is that he runs the offense, but he doesn't. He's not really.
And he was under center in college, to me, you shouldn't be scouting the offense, but Kyle does a little bit of that.
Yeah, he was under center in offense. I mean, it was easy to watch his film, and like Kyle Shanahan said, it's easy to pick out plays. It was easy to see him running 49er schemes, whether it was out.
And it's hard to find bad plays from Trey. I mean, he threw no picks in college.
No, there was a few that were close, but no, there's not a whole lot. And it's hard the evaluation of Trey Lance was extremely difficult because there's not very many throws. It was less than 350 throws. He rarely played. No combine. He rarely played into the fourth quarter. There were very few times when you watched him where he actually played in the fourth quarter of a tight game. I think there might have only been two during his entire.
He didn't have to.
Right, he didn't have to because they were blowing everybody out. It was right, and so
he would have been better suited going to Iowa State.
Yeah, he would have. He would have been better going to Iowa State. He would have been better going to Minnesota, but what have you? Definitely.
Honestly, yeah. It's too bad that Minnesota didn't want him. I mean, I know they got that guy Tanner Morgan, who's whatever, fine, but anyway, that didn't happen. Did the Niners misevaluate Trey Lance? I think they did. I think what happened was. Maybe he'll end up proving them wrong, but I felt like they felt he's not a dual threat. He's a very mobile pocket quarterback. So we'll sit him a year and develop him the right way. And then I don't think sitting him a year did anything. I was always kind of like suspicious about the whole developing on the practice squad. So I think they got in year 2, and you were there to training camp. It was uneven. He didn't have a lot of help, but man, it was pretty uneven. I think his completion percentage was in the mid 50s at best. For the whole thing. And I think they're like, well, our plan didn't exactly work. He's not super ready as a passer, so let's pivot, change the narrative, call him a dual threat, run the hell out of him, and hopefully we can tread water long enough for him to figure it out during the season. Or he gets injured and Jimmy Garoppolo plays. I think that's sort of that's why I felt like they ran him with no conscience, because they didn't have a conscience. They had options, and they felt he was sort of limiting their options. So they did what they thought he could do, which to me is funny because he wasn't even that good on zone reads. That's the other thing. He's good at scrambling and like QB draws, to your point, but zone reads, he didn't do that in college.
Yeah, the zone read wasn't really his gig in college.
Nah.
It was the draws and the quarterback powers and those kind of things. It wasn't the zone where he's having to read somebody and that kind of stuff. So you're right on that point. And I liked your point earlier. You talked about, how, what was it? They didn't necessarily want, you made a really good point earlier. You were kept talking. And so I didn't get a chance to agree with you on that one, but
sorry.
You made a point. Yeah. It's that's because I should have wrote it down.
When I hate when that happens. You're saying when, they wanted to develop him into not a dual threat, right? But it didn't work. And so they said, okay, we'll call him a dual threat.
Yeah, I think, I don't think they necessarily wanted. I think they wanted to utilize him in that role, but actually, here's what it was. And as we talked through it, I figured it out. It was when you were talking about how the running game as a whole performed better when he was on there, even without him running the ball.
Right.
And I agree with you on that standpoint.
Yeah.
On that point, it's totally accurate. They were running almost a 5-yard at a pop clip.
I mean, Debo was like unstoppable. Elijah Mitchell, they only had like 6 carries in the season. That was another rough one for Trey Lance. Like Elijah Mitchell got hurt immediately. Jeff Wilson Jr. took a game or two to get his feet. But honestly, the run game seemed like it's way better with Trey Lance on the field than it is with Brock or Jimmy. And that's just like math, right? That's the 11-on-11 thing. As long as defenses treat him like a dual threat, that's good for the 49ers running backs. And I think the Niners could use that early in the season while they're finding themselves on offense. If Trey Lance is still on the team, God forbid they trade him. I mean, I don't know. But if he's still on the team, just that would make me want to play him over Sam Darnold, unless Sam Darnold is really tearing it up. Really.
We'll get into this Sam Darnold Trey Lance thing because there's a lot of interest for me when I look at, because I watched some Sam Darnold film and I watched him and I'm like, and these guys are very similar. The only difference is one guy's been in the league for a couple of years. But
maybe that's what Kyle's thinking too, right? 2 number 3 picks. You know what I mean? Now he's kind of hedged his bets. If it doesn't work with Trey, I can just say, well, I got this other number 3 pick who had a lot of talent that I made it work with.
Yeah, well, and if it does with Darnold, they have that ability
Yeah.
to. He's cheaper, right? If they, that's where I know that people are talking about possibly trading Lance, and if they trade him, they save some money that way, and they have a quarterback who's already cheaper, and they're both young, 26, 23, or 22, I guess it is for Lance, going to be 23, and these guys are young, and who knows what's going to happen with either one of them, Trey Lance or Sam Darnold. We don't know what they're going to be in San Francisco. We know what Darnold's been in New York, and he was okay last year in Carolina, but we don't know what he's going to be like in this scheme. And it's interesting because I've quoted this a couple of times because you and I did a film breakdown of Sam Darnold.
We did. Remember that
back in 2021.
We just ridiculed him. It was awful.
Well,
yeah.
I think between
they were playing the Niners.
I don't remember who they were playing in that one, but it was because it was at that point when Sam Darnold might come to the 49ers, and everybody was talking to him about him coming to the 49ers before the 2021 season. And we looked at that film and we came away with two things. One was, man, Darnold just doesn't look good, and the other one was, holy shit, Adam Gase is awful. Those were our two big takeaways.
Yeah. And Adam Gase did getting fired, and he really wasn't giving Sam Darnold any help. What I wanted to say was with Trey, his rookie year when he was going to be in that competition and there was going to be that 2 quarterback system, Kyle Shanahan was trying to install the zone read, and there was a day, and Trey Lance kept fumbling the ball like a lot. And that was an eye opener. And it's like, right, he didn't do this in college. And I remember it reminded me of Kaepernick's rookie year. He had been at Reno forever. He came to the Niners and they put him under center, and he kept fumbling the ball in practice. And that was part of the reason I think he didn't play right away with the Niners was there was a transition there. There's a transition for Trey Lance as a runner in the NFL, and it doesn't mean he can't be a good one. That's the thing. Like, who gives a damn about the zone read? The quarterback run element on the zone read is such a small part of the game, and it's not even an explosive play. Like, if you use it at the right times, it'll get you first down, a touchdown. But it's really like a 5-yard play. I think the quarterback runs that are the most devastating are the scrambles to me. And yeah, I mean the scramble, and I think he could be a really good scrambler.
And that's where
that was Steve Young. Steve Young on the freaking zone read.
No, they didn't have. No. They definitely weren't running the zone read with Steve Young. And I think you look at Trey Lance and you've watched him play so far. He's been far more explosive on his scrambles, and he's been
indecisive
because he has been indecisive on his runs, designed runs at least. I think you kind of look at Lance and you see where he is moving forward, and I was excited to see what he was going to do, in 2022, even against, I know that his training camp was up and down, and I talked about that a lot, but I was excited to see what he was going to do in week 1. And it was a bummer to have that rain. And I thought he still played decent. And there were some, he played good early on. It's just the thing when it comes to watching Trey Lance with the 49ers is, and it's not just Trey's fault though, but this offense is very inconsistent, and it struggles to find its rhythm when Trey Lance is out there. That seems to be the biggest. That's my biggest takeaway.
And I think that's true, right? He's never going to be the guy. I mean, he's probably not going to be the guy complete 67, 68, 69% of his throws anytime soon. So with him, the bargain you're making is, okay, we won't be that kind of offense. We'll be better at running the ball. We'll run first team anyway. And we'll be better at taking shots down the field, which complements a run-first team. So, no, I mean, we won't necessarily be as good at keeping the offense on schedule through the pass game, but we'll be more explosive through the pass game. And we could be more explosive overall. I mean, I thought that was the idea, but maybe, certain people in the team aren't as on board. I thought Kyle Shanahan got it because he's a genius. He can see it. He understands. I mean, Philly gets it. That's how they use – I don't know, but it seems like the Niners definitely want to play a certain way because they've been playing a certain way since 2017.
Yeah, and I think we'll see how Lance is this year when he's during training camp and during OTAs and those kind of things. I think we kind of earlier we compared Lance and the 49ers to the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, and the difference between Hurts and Lance is the accuracy on those short throws. Because Lance has the arm, he can throw it deep.
Hurts is quite accurate.
Yeah,
Hurts is quite accurate.
Hurts is very good in that because the Eagles their offense is interesting because they throw a lot of screens, a lot of short,
of layups. Yeah.
Yes. And then they
Yeah.
take the deep shot over the top, right? That's the 3-point ball,
Yeah.
and they do a lot of that. And
Yeah.
I think that's where the 49ers wanted to go with Trey Lance or want to go with Trey Lance. And I think just Lance has to be better at getting the ball out of his hands quickly and getting it where those guys can make plays. And so I think if you're talking about like misevaluating Lance, I think it's a little bit of some of that stuff showed up in his college film.
Because I don't think they liked Justin Fields on the quick game. I think they felt he had an elongated release. He's not going to be that good on the layups, and I thought they thought Trey Lance would be. But we've seen Lance really like airmail some screens and stuff where it's like, whoa, man, that's a really easy throw. Even at the end of the Houston game, remember he did that, and Kyle Shanahan yelled at him. I was like, why are you yelling at Trey? It's like, well, that's Kyle, and he did just miss a layup.
Yeah, it was like down in the red zone right there. And
yes, on the right.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I can't wait.
Didn't he miss one to Debo in Chicago at the end of the first half? They tried to throw a screen out to Debo, and it was just like totally off. It was like, what, dude? Yeah,
there was a couple of them, and there was a couple of them, but there was one.
Yeah.
There was one that
now
that I think
I want to ridicule Jalen Hurts for a second. What was that throw at the end of the Super Bowl? That Hail Mary? The hell was that? He was like 20 yards short. What the hell was that?
Yeah,
Trey Lance could have made that throw.
His arm was tired because he'd been throwing so much.
I guess he had arm fatigue. All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.